All right, let's dive straight into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the newly signed US-Iran ceasefire framework. We're going to trace its ripple effects all the way from the geopolitical epicenter in the Middle East straight to your wallet. After a staggering 4 months of war, the landscape is shifting rapidly, and we're going to break down exactly what this means using the data and reports coming right from the ground.
Here's how we're going to break it all down today. We'll start with the US-Iran peace framework itself, then move into the highly fragile geopolitics holding it together. From there, we'll examine the harsh realities and devastation in Lebanon, look at how global markets are reacting, and finally wrap up with the direct impact on your wallet.
Section 1. The US-Iran peace framework. Let's look at what both sides actually agreed to.
So what exactly was electronically signed after 4 intense months of conflict? Well, it really boils down to 3 main pillars. First up, it secures a 60-day extension of the current ceasefire. Second, and this is absolutely massive for the global economy, it mandates the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, meaning both sides agreed to remove their blockades. And third, it sets up a roadmap for further negotiations regarding Iran's nuclear program. So it's heavily focused on hitting the pause button on the immediate conflict and unlocking that absolutely crucial global waterway.
The political framing around this is pretty fascinating, too. Over the G7 summit of major industrial nations in France, President Donald Trump was striking a very triumphant tone. For him, despite what some critics might view as a strategic setback for America, he basically declared victory. His exact words were, "It's mission accomplished, the deal's all signed, and the strait is already partially opened." He even mentioned they were hunting for a couple of lingering mines, but fully anticipated the strait would be completely open by Friday.
But let's step back and look at the market's underlying hesitation here. While politicians have high hopes that those ships stuck in the Gulf are going to start moving again, marine insurance rates are still exceptionally high. And you know what that tells us? It means the shipping industry still views this pause as incredibly fragile. They're literally pricing in the reality that an electronic signature on a piece of paper doesn't magically erase the physical risks out on the water.
Section 2. Geopolitics and fragile ceasefires. Because as we know, a framework like this certainly doesn't exist in a vacuum.
There is a stark contrast in conditions between the key regional players. On one side, Iran insists that any deal in the Gulf strictly depends on a ceasefire holding over in Lebanon and Israel. But on the other side, Israel's stance is completely different. They are absolutely insisting on retaining their freedom to act and strike against any attacks, specifically calling out the Iranian-backed group Hezbollah operating out of Lebanon. So an agreement in the Gulf is entirely tangled up with the incredibly volatile situation over on the Mediterranean coast.
And talk about a pressure cooker. For Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, this creates a massive domestic and international balancing act. He has to manage demands from hardliners within his own cabinet, face off against political opponents who are eager to continue the offensive, maintain his vital relationship with President Trump, and somehow navigate all of this with a general election looming just months away. It is an incredibly delicate political tightrope to walk.
Section 3. The devastation in Lebanon. To really grasp this explainer, we have to look away from the polished G7 cameras for a minute and focus on ground zero.
1 million. Over 1 million Lebanese people were forced to flee their homes in the south because of the Israeli offensive. And recently, the main road down from Beirut was just jammed with these people desperately trying to return, wanting to get back home even if there was literally nothing but rubble waiting for them. The human scale of this displacement is just staggering.
Take major southern towns like Nabatea, for instance. The damage there is profound. The town was under daily Israeli bombardment, and its central market has been reduced to absolute ruins. Sources on the ground report that locals out clearing the rubble felt it was more like a chance to inspect the damage rather than a true return to normalcy. The destruction of civilian property really echoes scorched earth tactics. And look, while the Lebanese army has returned with the massive job of stabilizing the region, Hezbollah operatives are still present away from the cameras, and the Israeli army isn't far away either, just awaiting orders. Make no mistake, this is a pause in the war, not an end to it.
The individual toll behind all this geopolitical maneuvering is heartbreaking. Mohammed Harb, a local shopkeeper, was standing above the total wreckage of a shop in what was actually his children's playroom, and he said, "This isn't war, it's a crime against people, systematic destruction." Words like that remind us of the profound human cost. As the reporting notes, Lebanon's curse is that bigger countries constantly fight their proxy wars on its soil. It's a conflict that destroys thousands of individual dreams and years of hard work in the blink of an eye.
Section 4. Global markets react quickly. So how does a conflict, and now a fragile pause, impact the rest of the world? Let's dive into the markets.
The economic fate of millions literally hung on the Strait of Hormuz for the last 100 days. But with hopes of a lasting peace, the price of oil has tumbled down to just over $80 a barrel. Now, traffic through the strait is still hugely down compared to last year, and repairing damaged energy facilities to get things back to normal will definitely take time. But still, the markets have reacted with swift optimism to this new framework.
The potential reopening of that waterway has acted like a giant cooling system for energy markets across the board. Diesel, it peaked back in April, but is already down by about 14 pence. Gas prices are also falling from their peak a few months ago, and importantly, they are nowhere near the massive, scary highs we saw after Russia invaded Ukraine back in 2022. And oil, as we just mentioned, is way down from its recent peak. This drop reverses the severe spikes we saw earlier in the year, which bodes really well for prices at the pump.
Section 5. The impact on your wallet. Let's translate these massive global data points directly to your household budget. What does unblocking a strait thousands of miles away actually mean for you?
Let's talk about your energy bills. A typical UK household is currently set to spend over £1,800 per year on energy. Now, bills are due to go up modestly next month, sure. But because of this ceasefire framework and those cooling wholesale energy markets we just looked at, there are now strong hopes that bills won't rise much more as we head into the autumn and winter.
And it's not just energy, it's your food too. Think of the supply chain like a set of dominoes. First, the Strait of Hormuz shipping lanes reopen. That allows delayed shipments of crucial fertilizer to recover just in time for the planting season down in the southern hemisphere. Because it takes months for higher costs to ripple down to the shelves, recovering those fertilizer supplies right now means the extent of winter food price hikes at your local supermarket should be directly limited. So clearing that geopolitical bottleneck is actually helping keep your grocery bill in check.
So to wrap up the economic front, energy bill hikes are likely stabilized for the autumn. The very real fears we had about depleting global oil reserves and massive disruptions to jet fuel and energy supplies, those are retreating. And overall, the UK economy has proven much more resilient than expected throughout this rocky period. The overarching hope here is that this 100-day war represents a short spell of economic turbulence, rather than a prolonged multi-year global crisis.
But we have to return to reality before we go. As shipping lines hesitate to lower their insurance rates, and as the rubble in Nabatea is slowly cleared away by over 1 million displaced people, we have to ask ourselves, is this delicate framework going to hold and become a lasting resolution? Or are the world, the markets, and the people of Lebanon simply taking a brief, fragile breath? The US and Iran haven't made peace. They've just extended a ceasefire to negotiate. The underlying issues that exploded into war remain, and could absolutely do so again. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes on the strait, and keep asking the big questions.